Hi, Thom.
Hi, chị Binh. Hi, hello everyone.
Hello, attendants and audience of Viettesol 2021. I hope that you find our slides colorful and inspiring, and I hope that our short colors inspire you too.
Actually, it is our great honor to be here today to share with you our presentation. And let me officially introduce again. My name's Thom Nguyen, or you can call me Thom, and my colleague chị Binh.
My name is vanthithanhbinh, and you can call me Thanh.
We are both from University of Languages and International Studies, Vietnam National University, Hanoi. You can call it shortly the ULIS-VNU. And our presentation today is about teachers' mindset and well-being, and of course, the impacts on teachers' motivation.
So allow us to move on to our next slide.
In this presentation, we are going to present about the fixed mindsets and poorer well-beings. I don't want to say more about this because it will be presented later by chị Binh. And then growth mindset and improved well-being. These keywords seem to be a little bit vague at the moment, but it will be unearthed later. And then back to the research. And we would like to focus on the suggested research protocols and some implications. And we also mentioned the suggestions about toolkit and some of our final words.
And after the suggested toolkit, we will discuss the implication of this research on the small scale, that is the professional activities of the members of teacher community in Vietnam, English teacher. And then we will also talk about our intention and our wish, how the application of this research can be applied to a larger community and with impacts into more profound and far off areas of the teacher's life, the family life of the children, of the kids, and the kids' future. So what we are doing today is a very small thing, just a starting point. It is the baby step, but we hope that the baby will grow up very quickly and the step will stride longer, and many of you will join us in our work, and we make a big and beautiful movements in the development of Viettesol first, and then with the community of teachers in Vietnam in general. So let us start.
Now, let me say something personally first. As you may know, chị Binh is a long-term friend and colleague of mine. Actually, I have known her more than 20 years. I used to be her student at the university, and in my eyes, she's always a ball of energy, a teacher full of passion, excitement, inspiration, who is very supportive and willing to share and raise me up. So I was a little bit surprised, actually shocked, when I happened to know her story one day. So I do not want to say more about this because I can just say that her story and her journey did lay the foundation and the justification for our collaboration in both research, in both finding the life remedies. And to cut a long story short, now I would like to feature chị Binh for the next part to say about, to tell about her own story and insights. And remember that we are open to all the questions and comments later. Thank you.
Thank you, Thom. You are always so inspiring. Sweet and inspiring. Allow me to begin, everyone. Let me begin with a period of time in my life when it was harsh. When it was harsh, it was like a pitfall. It was like a downturn of my well-being. It was a period of turmoil and trauma to me. That was the school year of 2019 and 2020. You know, I will go through with you 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, the points that you have seen here. Let me begin with the first. In that year, the students who were recruited were of generally not so high language competence as the previous years. As a teacher of literature, you know, I would like to introduce to you, I'm a teacher of literature of English and American literature. In ULIS, that means I don't teach the 4 skills, speaking, reading, writing, and listening, but I teach literature. So language, the language of English is the means of communication in the classroom, and the subject is a little bit demanding if the students' language competence was not so good, because everything is in English, and a piece of literature needs very profound appreciation, profound discussion, a lot of concentration. They need to put all of themselves into the lesson, not just the language skills, but also their heart, their mind, and the teacher needs to be so as well. And so in that year, the language competence of the students in general were a little bit poorer, relatively poorer than usual. Many of my students could not express themselves in a proper way, so that they sometimes had to switch to Vietnamese. And if they did not switch to Vietnamese, they would make mistakes and they would fail to express themselves. So the discussions in the classroom were not of a quality that I was used to as a teacher. And side by side with that poorer language competence was the poorer discipline and motivation among the students. Some of them did not have the course book. Some of them did not prepare the lesson carefully. And you can imagine if they did not prepare, and then everyone discussed, they would not understand and they would feel bored. And they would look down like this. They would not look at the others. And then their face, you know, on their face, they, you know, they don't need to say anything, but their face tell me that, oh, I am a very boring teacher. How can you teach such a boring subject? I just want to get out of this classroom right at this moment and run away from you and this lesson. You know, all my teaching career, I had never encountered such a you know, a number of unmotivated students in one classroom in one term. It was a big challenge. For the first few lessons, I tried to you know, to overcome that bad motivation, because they dismotivated me. And then, however, by the second half of the term, it was beyond my ability to process. So I started to judge them, and I started to shout at some of them. I started to criticize some of them, and I started to apply discipline. You know, if you behave badly in the classroom, then I will deduct your attendance score. If you don't prepare the lesson, I will consider you absent in the classroom, even though your body is here, but your mind is not. So I will consider you absent. And for the 1 or 2 guys in the classroom in that school year who never prepared the lesson, who always slept, I would even shout at him as if he were my son. I told myself that, oh, he is the age of my son. So if he behaves badly, then it is my duty to remind him of his obligation. So In response to this situation in the teaching job, I increase discipline. Usually, discipline was not resulted to. I gave them rewards and I gave them encouragement. But by the second half of the term, I started to resort to discipline. And the stronger the discipline was, the more demotivated they became. And near the end of the term, I realized that I was stuck in a negative situation. And it was the first time I experienced that kind of thing at that level of intensity. You know, I experienced demotivated students before. I experienced students with bad language competence before. I experienced being demotivated myself before, because it's not the first time I was a teacher. But that kind of intensity was beyond all the previous experience. Okay, let me move on to the next things. Side by side with the problem in the classroom was the problem at home. At the beginning of that school year, my son was admitted into a high school of my dream. That was CNN. I believe that it was the best high school in Hanoi. And when my son passed the entrance exam and admitted into the class of Japanese language, I was so proud of him, so proud of myself, because I taught him English from the beginning until the end. So he was solely my product. And I look at myself as something big and beautiful and to be proud of. But 1 week after the entrance exam, 1 week after we received the report of admission, my son started to reveal the truth. It was a nightmare. He was addicted to gaming. And he has been gaming systematically for 1 term. And my husband was trying very hard to prevent that. But as a policeman, you know, my husband is a policeman. He applied the technique of a policeman. He would try to observe, he would try to punish, and he would try to talk my son into being reasonable. That means, in other words, he shouted at my son. And at that time, I was so shocked that I could not choose a proper approach to solve that problem. Instinctively, I only knew that I should not shout at my son. Instinctively, I only knew that it was a phase of his development, even though it is not desirable. I cannot negate that. It was the truth. He cannot be only good. He must be good and bad at the same time. And everybody has the right to be good and bad. He has been very good at this aspect, then he may be very bad at the other aspect. I know that I should do something to improve that. But I was so overwhelmed and so shocked that I was too shocked to have to define what my approach would be. And my husband was very worried, very scared. He thought that, oh, that was the end of the world. And so there was a lot of conflict. My husband argued with my son. I argued with my son, and I argued with my husband. So there was a lot of arguments and increased discipline at home as well. So that year was the heated year at home and at ULIS as well. And now I look back and I see that my 2 approaches at that time was more discipline and reward. Beside the rewards, I increased the amount of discipline. I reward the students who were well prepared for the lesson by adding 0.1 into their midterm score whenever they did something, like when they presented something, when they wrote an extra essay that was optional. And then if they did not prepare the lesson, then I would deduct 0.1 from their midterm score. And if they came to the classroom without being well prepared, I just deducted their score. And if they badly behaved, I deducted their score. And I don't think I need to tell you, you know, right? They dislike that because they perceive themselves as adults, but I treated them as kids and they hated that more than I could imagine at that time. And my approach to the conflicts at home was I tried to resolve the conflicts. You know, I did not accept the conflicts. I believe that the conflicts were undesirable. Conflicts were bad. Conflicts were problem, and I tried to make them smooth. I tried to come to a solution where the conflicts would be absent in my family life. I don't want the conflicts to be there. So whenever there was a conflict outside, there was another conflict inside me. Conflict towards the conflict. Resentment towards resentment. So that was double, both at home and at the university. And the result, I'm sorry, I'm sorry for the interruption. I'm doing a midterm test for my students today, and perhaps this student has some problem with her paper and she wants to ask, but I have to come back to her later on because I need to record this in time. We don't have time to do the recording again, and I hope that you will sympathize with that.
So we can pause.
Pause? Okay, let's pause for a while. Okay. No, this is pause share, right?
No, you put the recording and you put pause.
I can pause recording.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm done with the student and I can be back. Okay, so let me present to you the nightmare results of that school year.
We can guess. When I look at your slide here and I can guess the result, you know, the low rates, the insulting, resentful post on ULIS confess. I didn't read that confess, but I seem to understand how students felt at that time. And I guess that now when you mentioned about the shattered professional self-perception, a lot of disappointment, a lot of, you know, blaming yourself, and maybe you may think of quitting the job. You may think of trying to escape. And I guess that when we talk about teaching motivation, you may think you do not want to be back to the classroom, although you love teaching. Is it right?
The classroom was like a battlefield then.
Ah, yeah. So what next? What you tried to do after that?
I changed. But before we talk about change, I would like to pause here a little while, and I want to ask you, audience, have you ever experienced this kind of stuff in your teaching or researching life? I believe that everyone has a down period. I cannot imagine somebody's life being smoothly okay from the very beginning to the very end, right? Everybody must go through some kind of crisis and problem. Because without the crisis and difficulties and problems, we will be very boring people.
Yeah, sure. So you think very positive. I think we have a lot of crisis, midlife crisis, career crisis, and sometimes there's no reason for things to happen.
I believe that there's one reason for things to happen. That is when there's enough things in the outside, you know, when the conditions are right, things will show up. And someday, sooner or later, somebody will go through something. And this was my thing. It was my thing. It was strong. It was intense. It was serious. And you know, I even though now when I look back, I say that it made me a more powerful and strong and optimistic.
I can't agree with you more.
if you want, if I have a choice, then I say that I would say, oh, I am now interesting enough, optimistic enough. I don't want to repeat this cycle, even though I know that if it comes again, that I will become a better version of myself later on. But no,
just once, no more.
No
So
more,
now
no more.
I expect that we can see a brighter future of your version. So could you please show us your better version?
The next, I will go through it more quickly because we seem to be running out of time and I've been going too slowly. And in the next year, I changed my mindset and my well-being improved. So what is the growth mindset? I did not allow that present, that now, that time to define all the future. I started to change my mindset into more optimistic. I believe that things would improve. I believe that life is a process of improvement. Whenever we go down, then we will go up again higher. And like an arrow, if you pull the arrow back and then you let go, and then the arrow will move forward very far and reach the goal and do its job. So my growth mindset was I gave myself a lot of trust, a lot of hope, and I gave my students trust and hope. And I did the same for my husband and my son. So both in the family and in the workplace, trust and hope and optimism. And in the next school year, I changed my mindset, but the students were still almost the same. Not everyone was good, not everyone was motivated, not everyone was well disciplined. But perhaps because it is the change in the mindset, but perhaps it was the reality, or perhaps it was both. But I found that not everyone was badly motivated. Not everyone was fully disciplined, and not everyone had problem with their language problems, with their language competence. And so I try to restrain from judging them, and I built up a belief that they are the process of perfecting themselves. And they have the right to be imperfect now, but in the future, the next day they will be less imperfect, and the day after next they will be less imperfect, they will be further less. And I adopt the same approach to my son. This is only a period of his growing, and he will change. And I saw conflict as not only bad. There's the optimistic side of the conflict was that my husband was very responsible for educating the son, and he was very engaged in educating the son together with me. I was not the only one who was educating him. I was not the only one worried about his future. So in fact, he's the good parent when he argued with me, very responsible. And I see that, oh, I'm not alone in this problem. I have another person, and his approach and my approach can combine into a better one. So I started to see that conflicts is good, that I have a good husband. My son has a good father, so there is a conflict. So even though when I'm quarreling or arguing with my husband, I don't feel depressed inside. I feel that it is an sometimes some problem can be called not problematic problem, right? There's a problem, but it is not problematic. So the result was very.
I cannot see your slide. Can you check it?
Oh, really? Can you see now? I think there's a problem with the internet.
Please move on, because on my screen still the first slide.
Oh,
so could you stop sharing?
Okay,
and then
stop share and then share again.
And you share again.
Pause,
sorry
pause.
for the interruption.
Sorry about the problem. I hope that the problem is not problematic to you.
No.
The result of that year was very good.
Impressive.
I received better feedback from my students, and the atmosphere at home was up, was cheerful, was hopeful, even though my son was still playing game and we were still unhappy about that. But we did not find the problem as hopeless, and we did not find ourselves helpless. And my self-esteem as a teacher was improved. Everything was improved, and the growth mindset was really the starting point of every changes that happened in this year. From my own problem, from my own case, I came to this conclusion. If you keep a fixed mindset about yourself, about everything inside you, about everything outside you, then you will look more, you will focus more on the negative side and the stagnant side of things, and you will be badly motivated. And when you are badly motivated, the vicious circle just reinforce and reinforce every day. And as the time goes by, you will be more pessimistic, you will find things more stagnant, and you will be even further demotivated. But with a growth mindset, every day you become more optimistic, every day you love yourself more, every day you are more tolerant to the behavior of the other people outside, and every day your approach became more gentle, more uplifting, and finally you will be the one who receive the uplift effect of the growth mindset. Everyone around you will got uplifted by you, and then their better motivation would motivate you back, and you became more motivated yourself. And that is the good circle, the virtuous circle that repeats daily and weekly and daily and weekly. And by the end of the term, things appear to be totally different to me. And now I know that we are running out of time, and I give the platform back to Thom, the fragrant pineapple. She has things that she wants to share with you, and I'm very excited to hear from her because I'm very excited with her excitement. I give you the platform.
Actually, your stories leaves me some ups and downs feeling, it is not the very first time I have heard of this story, but anytime when I have chance to recall, I still bear in mind a thought that if what would happen to me if I were in the same situation. And I guess that many of us here can be in similar situations, similar contexts in different ways. But by then, we need to think of our roles as both a teacher, researcher. We may think of our role in a family. We can be a wife, a husband. We can be a son, a daughter of somebody. And we can have many other social responsibilities as well. So the story of Chị Bình reminds me of something that we can do in research. Actually, last year, it was only her sole story, but later the story and Bing's engagement in the journey motivated us to make it into a bigger thing, that we decided to conduct a research, and it was in the in a piloting process, and the vetting process has finished one phase, and leading and has led us to some more bigger insights, greater insights. And we would like to introduce you here a suggested research protocol that we have applied in conducting our research and for our further studies in the future. We intend to use engaged ethnography inspired by the institutional ethnography by a Canadian scholar, Dorothy Smith, and by others researchers as well, like Steinberg and Van der Reer, or Pacheco or Parajo. And the key words of this approach here is that we would like to state the positionality of the researcher, both as an insider and outsider, as both a researcher and a participant. We would like to provide the engagement, and by engagement here, we means that we engage in different phases of life, of teaching, and we won't try to exploit, but we look at it from different aspects, from the ontological approach, as well as something related to the multidisciplinary approaches, from the social perspective, from the understanding of the nature of the teacher's work, of the context of the community, of the social relations, and the understanding of culture as well. And then when we look at the representation aspect, the ethnographic approach allows us to discover the intimate thoughts of both the researchers and the participants, through which we can have the interpretation and understanding of the thoughts and the behaviors. And we hope to give the participants a chance to raise their voice. And at the same time, we maintain a very healthy distance so that we can both support the participants and also learn from their sharing. And we make it into a research, but actually it's not just a scientific research. It can be a way to find a life therapy, not just for us in our teaching career, but in our daily life. So that's why our research look at the teacher's well-being, the teacher's mindset, and the impact on their motivation from different approaches. It can be looked at from the pedagogical approach in order to improve our motivation, students' motivation, student engagement, and students' performance by the end of the course. We also look at it from the psychological approach. It means that we focus on the well-being, the mental health, all the other health-related issues, the occupational stress, some kinds of stress copers to help deal with the situation. We also look at the social approach. We want to see the relationship, the human-centered relationship between human and human, the interrelationship, the cultural aspects, one's background, one's set belief, our perceived understanding of the roles in our life. So we look at a person, not just a teacher. We look at a person, we look at a human, we look at the personalized and customized relationship here. We try to figure out the problems, but we do not manipulate the participant. We do not impose anything. We look at it implicitly, and we give them the chance to raise the voice, and they can be heard. And then we use the coaching methods. We ask questions so that the participants, they can themselves find out the problems, and they can resort to the solution. They can try, give it a try. They can make some kinds of error. They can have feedback, and later they can be on the right track, because we believe that each themselves can know exactly their own problems and find the best solution, like in the case of chị Binh. So the researcher and the participants can create a very good rapport. We understand each other. We can become part of each other's journey. And for this part, we believe that the case of chị Binh can be representative, because you can see yourself in her own story. You may have different situations, you may have different solutions, but by the end, we aim that we aimed to find out the challenges that we have encountered. We aimed to find out the solution that work best in our case. And if possible, when we generate the themes after the study, and we find out the solution. We aim to reach some kind of toolkits. And it is not just a theoretical foundation. It is something more practical, implicable, and chị Bình will say more about that in a few words.
Thank you, Thom. I just love to hear you talking about levels of engagement. So that is the thing that make me so excited about this research. And even when I'm talking to you now, I know that you will not listen to me until Saturday afternoon, but I feel as if you are here listening to me. And I just want you to feel your heartbeat. If you find your heart beating any faster when you hear the word engagement, because before I talk about the suggested toolkit, I just want to mention another aspect in our teaching job. That is, in a teaching room, as teachers, we are required to motivate the student, make them motivated for their learning. But we tell each other that we should be open to the learners. We should try to create all the good conditions for them to learn well. But we think of the conditions outside, like the classroom, like the chairs, the table, the lights, the course book. But we don't talk much about the well-being of the learner as well. And we require teachers, we assess the teachers, we evaluate the teachers on their ability to do this and that, to motivate, to transfer knowledge, to everything. But we don't ask ourselves whether a teacher can do her job well if deep down inside she cannot love herself, if she cannot feel motivated about her teaching job. How can she motivate others? And if she is unhappy herself, how can she make the students happy? And I cannot imagine somebody so unhappy can be motivated. And I cannot imagine somebody so happy being unmotivated. So we are thinking of a deeper approach towards motivation, towards well-being. That is, we take care of the well-being of the teacher and the well-being of the learner. And we see the well-being as the platform on which motivation, interest, performance, everything else will form, will shape, and will influence each other in the classroom. So we have a checklist of professional well-being for the teachers. In their job, about their workload, about their self-confidence, about their self-esteem, about their motivation for the teaching job, etc. And then we will measure the motivation of the teacher towards the teaching job. And if we find problems, we will suggest to the teacher an approach of mindful living. The growth mindset is an example, but the growth mindset is a very big concept. It can be split up into smaller things that we apply in smaller aspects of life in each moment. For example, if I have a fixed mindset about this presentation now, and I will think that, oh, I'm only talking to Thom, and I imagine that you are listening, and it is so boring. But if I approach, if I have a growth mindset approach, then I will say that, oh, the seed that we are growing, the mental and intellectual seed that we are growing today, will begin to grow on Saturday afternoon when you listen to this presentation.
Yeah.
And that seed will grow in your heart after your listening. So we put ourselves in the future, better outcome of a present activity. So a growth mindset is like a representative of a mindful living approach. And we want to coach the teachers, share with the teachers the experience and the knowledge that we have about the mindful living approach. And also we will share with the teachers the mindful teaching approach to the activities that the teacher can do to the students before the teaching, during the teaching, and after the teaching time. So that the lesson time is not only the time when the teacher transfers knowledge and skills to the learners, or the teacher organizes the learning activities to the learners, but it is also the time when the hearts meet the heart, when the motivation excites motivation, when the growth mindset influence growth mindset, and the seed of happiness in one heart would be transported to the other heart, and the classroom will become a little jungle where all the plants are named happy. We will organize coaching sessions, and after the coaching sessions, we will re-evaluate the well-being of the teacher. We will re-evaluate the motivation of the teacher, and we will testify the result of that with the test of motivation. We will assess the motivation of the learners towards the subject and the lessons. And it is our big dream.
Big project, big dream.
That this is not only an occupational approach, this is a life approach.
A life approach, and continuous and human-centered, engaged.
And I hope that this engaged teaching, I would like to call it engaged teaching. Has anybody talked about engaged teaching before? I hope that engaged teaching like this, I don't know if my terming is right or not, but I just love the word engaged teaching. I hope that when the teacher herself is happy, the students will be happy. And when the students happy, they will learn well. And when they learn well, they will bring that happiness back home to the parents. And I hope that at first we will spread this growth mindset and mindful teaching and living approach among the teachers of English. But later on, this approach will be applied to the community of teachers of other subjects, so that who knows, maybe in 50 years, all the teachers in Vietnam will have a mindful teaching and living approach, and all the teachers will be happy, and all the students will be happy, and we will not hear the parents complain about the students' workload and the teachers.
Let's go on and dream, and then make it come true.
Okay, so I'm so happy.
Okay, chị Bình, I think we should save it for next year's presentation when we tell the participants some more interesting stories about this, because you may know that our evaluation protocol may include a lot of reflection, a lot of observation, and a lot of teachers' voices here, a lot of stories, inspiring stories, and we can learn from those experiences as well. And to end our presentation here, we do wish you have a very nice weekend, and we wish you to have very, like, in terms of well-being, we will be strong, we will be inspired, and we will always love our job as a teacher.
And after loving yourself as a teacher, love yourself as a human being, and inspire your learners to love themselves, not only as people, but as human beings. And grow the seed of love, of self-love and confidence and hope and growth mindset in one classroom, in one life, and in one big community. So this is a very small research, but our motivation and our ambition are just immeasurable. I just can't wait to carry out this
bigger and bigger. And you know that now we are grateful to your being here with us today, and we do hope that we can receive some of your comments or feedback. You can send us your response via emails or in the chat box.
Thank you very much for being with us, and thank you very much for listening. And I hope that we will communicate via email, and we will start to work together. Who knows? Some of you may want to join our research.
Yeah.
And the research will be carried out not only in ULIS but in other institutions as well. This is, who knows? Just keep the hope. I just keep the growth mindset.
Okay. Stick to it. Fingers crossed.
Thank you. So this time we have to finish. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye
With us.
bye.